Welcome everyone to this year's annual Friendship and Dialogue dinner, dinner without a dinner. Hopefully next year we'll be back to normal and meet in person. Last year's event was just before the COVID restrictions were put in. Many of us, maybe that was the last event we attended in person. That was back in March here. And more than a year later, we are still under restrictions, most of us at least. It seems like the light, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not the train. So hopefully we will be back to normal soon. Well, let me start by saying Happy Father's Day to all the fathers who are joining here. Again, interesting coincidence. For the past couple of years, we do this event at the beginning of March, and the day we chose happens to be always Women's Day. So if you remember, we would hand out roses to all the women participating. And this year, we are now at the annual dinner on Father's Day. So I wish I could give you flowers, but that would be a little hard to do on Zoom. Also, happy Juneteenth, our newest federal holiday, which we celebrated yesterday. We have to mention it, we are in Texas, so happy Juneteenth. And with that, I'd like to take a few minutes of your time. I still see people coming in, but I'd like to quickly go over what the Dialogue Institute is about. So I'm gonna share a presentation quickly with you here. And here we go. I hope you can see this. So this is the theme for this year's dinner is restoration, reconciliation, and resiliency. And the reason, I assume to most people, the reason is probably apparent, but with all the racial tensions, COVID restrictions, political division, natural disasters, you name them, floods, fires, record number of hurricanes, 2020 was really a challenging year, if you will. And after all these, even one of these would normally in a year would be challenging, and we had them all at once. So we thought, let's think about how we restore, go back to normal, and reconcile the divisions that I mentioned, and also resiliency, which is what we are being tested with right now. So that's what we chose as a theme this year. And our keynote is gonna be on this topic as well. So as you know, the Dialogue Institute Austin, or the Dialogue Institute General, or our mission, I like to summarize it as finding excuses to bring people together. And under COVID restrictions, it's very hard to do. So how do you bring people together when you're not allowed to meet? So as many organizations figured out, we also jumped onto that Zoom bandwagon pretty quickly. And in March, we started having events online and started streaming them on YouTube, which kind of helped us get into the 21st century in terms of streaming everything on social media and recording everything on YouTube. So let me just quickly go over all the events that we have done since the COVID restrictions started, basically since March. So the first group of events here is Dialogue Matters, which is our regular event where we invite a leader to speak about really any topic. And you just see a few here, like Catholicism with a big C by Dr. James Puglisi. I did a short course on Islam 101. We had a presentation about 4 noble women of faith. And then we invited, Capital Metro to talk about Project Connect. We had a chaplain talk about helping relationships, and then a UT professor talk about freedom for all, fundamentals of religious liberty. So as you can see, very wide range of topics. And then also the Holocaust. On the Holocaust Remembrance Day, we had a gentleman from the Texas Holocaust and Genocide Commission talk about the Holocaust. This is an event where we come together and present a topic from different faith traditions. And the one event we had on Interfaith Academy was on social polarization, or the polarization caused by social media that we are experiencing. So it was very interesting. Then we had the portrait series. This is basically Dr. Anne Graham, or member of our advisory board here. She is leading a discussion on different prominent peace builders. And the very first event was on Gandhi, and Arun Gandhi, the grandson of Gandhi, actually from India, talked about his grandfather. Kind of was a very interesting discussion. And then we had one on Mandela, again, a speaker from, where is that? South Africa, Dr. Govender talked about Mandela. We had another one on Pope John Paul II, and Dr. Thomas Mitchell, who spent many years at the Vatican, shared kind of his thought about the late Pope on that topic. So another series we have done many of was Meet the Author, and we need to do one with you, by the way, Dr. Soltas. So I'm just going to quickly go to them. There are a handful of these. Dr. Craig Considine talked about his book, The Humanity of Muhammad. Dr. Jill Carroll talked about the Dialogue of Civilization book. And then Dr. Tom Gage kind of talked about Gülen's dialogue on education. And then Jim Harrington, our very own Jim Harrington, talked about his book, Three Mystics Walk into a Tavern. I recommend that book. It's very nice to read. And then Dr. John Paul talked about Gülen's biography he wrote, Why a Muslim Scholar in Pennsylvania Matters to the World. Again, a very nice read. Dr. Zeki Sarotoprak talked about Islam's Jesus, a very true, thorough study of Jesus from the Muslim perspective. I think that's it. And then another event we have, the Dinner of Abrahamic Traditions. Again, this was a dinner without the dinner part, but normally we get together and three faith traditions share their perspective on a certain topic. And what better topic to share when you're under restrictions than practicing our religious duties during a pandemic. So that was a very interesting discussion as well. And then in our tradition, when you're faced with so many calamities, well, you're supposed to pray all the time, but when you're faced with so many calamities at once, it just becomes natural to pray, even if you're not inclined to pray. So we organized a number of interfaith prayers where we invited clergy from different faith traditions and came together and did basically interfaith prayer for peace and healing. We did a couple of those, and then we did a couple with youth. So where we invited mostly high school and university students to perform these prayers. And then Ramadan, last Ramadan happened right after the restrictions hit, before we could realize what's going on. We were kind of, it was a very solitude Ramadan, very alone Ramadan, because Ramadan is about getting together for iftar dinners. It's getting together for prayers. None of that happened last year. This year, it turned out to be not that different, but this year we were prepared. So we normally we do iftar dinners at different churches and synagogues and temples. almost every night in Ramadan. So this year we did virtual dinners, and this time virtual dinners actually means there was a dinner part. We actually distributed dinners to these families and then came together and had a little discussion, and then everybody enjoyed the dinners. So we did a few of these, and that's pretty much it. So lots of events, all of them online. We did the best we could to bring people together on Zoom or YouTube or whatever channel you were on. I'd like to thank all our sponsors. Special thanks to St. James Episcopal Church and Unity Church and Raindrop. These are always there whatever we do and we're really grateful for their friendship and support. And that's all I have in terms of the presentation. Let me stop that. And next, we will have a young lady, Zeynep Güven, who is a volunteer with the Dialogue Institute. She's gonna share a few words. So it's the microphone is yours, I guess.
Thank you, Güner Arslan, or Mr. Arslan. So like you said, my name is Zeynep Güven. I graduated university a couple of years ago, and I'm happy to be volunteering with Raindrop. You know, just sort of starting, but I'm also happy to be here. And this is my first time at this quote unquote dinner. So, so what I've seen so far, the Austin Dialogue Institute is an organization that is part of the global Hizmet movement. Hizmet is a Turkish word for service, which encompasses a greater spiritual meaning where serving people is serving God. The movement was started by Fethullah Gülen in the 60s in Turkey, creating a community of people who have a passion to serve and better humanity in themselves. The main idea of the movement is to focus on three major obstacles to most societies, including the United States: ignorance, poverty, and division. Education is the main focus of the Hizmet movement. Hizmet strives to give people the intellectual tools to think critically, investigate, and look around the world with creative wonder. Educated minds and hearts can build bridges and stand on the shoulders of the great leaders and thinkers of today and the past. To support our future leaders, schools and colleges have been opened all over the world, from Europe to Central Asia, Africa to the Far East. These schools serve all, regardless of race, ethnicity, or faith, and educate young minds in the modern sciences in both their local and language and English, with passionate teachers whose life goal is to serve their students. While Hizmet's teachers work to grow the minds of students, the struggles of poverty are ever present in every aspect of life and are a hurdle to education and success and must be alleviated. Poverty is being addressed from two different perspectives. On one hand, the movement operates international charities such as the US-based Embrace Relief, addressing a wide variety of needs such as clean water in Africa, hunger relief campaigns for Yemen and Kenya, disaster relief all over the world, and support for refugees in Greece, to name just a few. On the other hand, the movement encourages businesses and business people to invest in developing nations to create jobs and opportunities for people to raise themselves out of the cycle of poverty. Arguably, the most elusive of the three obstacles to a better society to tackle is divisions within society. A divided house cannot stand, and the world needs all of humanity, now more than ever, to stand together. Whether racial divisions, ethnic, religious, or political, the solution is to open channels of communication and dialogue and to establish trust between communities. The Dialogue Institute is a means to this end, and similar organizations inspired by the movement are bringing people together all over the world through events such as the one we are having today. I'd like to conclude with a few words on an international project that the movement has been putting together since 2003, and is a great example of bringing people together. In this case, young women and men from 160 countries have been coming together every year for the International Festival of Languages and Cultures. The mission of this festival is to showcase the talent of global youth in the performing arts, to celebrate our world's cultural diversity and create opportunities for international friendship building around shared human values. The festival brings youth from around the world together, working toward a common goal of showcasing a performance with the message of unity. This is much easier to show than to explain, so we'll show you a 2-minute video introducing the festival, followed by an older video with the performance of We Are the World. The connection made during these events have a significant and lasting effect on these bright kids, a cultivation of all 3 tenets of the Hizmet movement. Enjoy.
For any society, culture is its greatest wealth. Dialogue is a bridge. Through dialogue, our cultures grow by sharing. When love, peace, and goodness are our goals, all colors shine bright and free. Every voice is beautiful. Every person is our relative. Art is humanity's oldest language. Painting, music, dance, song, countless forms of expression connect and inspire. In difficult times, art heals. Art helps to make us whole. In this time of uncertainty and anxiety, when so many places for culture, our performance halls, our spaces for gathering have closed their doors, so many of us feel isolated, separated from friends, distant from our communities. You are not alone. In the midst of these unprecedented times, with the gift of technology, we're helping culture and the arts blossom around the world. We call out with the voice, the music, and the smiles of colors of the world, children of the world, springing forward across all borders. We embrace every color without prejudice against belief, race, or difference. We honor love and fairness at every opportunity. We do not stop with our extraordinary programs, our dedicated competitions. We continue on this sacred journey together. Let's come together and celebrate our cultural richness, a wealth we all share. Those roots that grow forever deeper, those flowers that shine always brighter. Happy May 21st, World Day of Dialogue and Cultural Diversity. We wish you happiness and joy. Wishing you happiness and joy.
There's a place in your heart, and I know that it is love. And this place could be much brighter than tomorrow. And if you really try, you'll find there's no need to cry. In this place, you feel there's no hurt or sorrow. There are ways to get there if you care enough for the living. Make a little space, make a better place. Feel the wild, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. If you care enough for the living, make a better place for you and for me. If you want to know why, there's a love that cannot lie. Love is strong, it only cares for joyful giving. If we try, we shall see. In this place we cannot feel fear or dread. We stop existing and start living. That it feels that always love's enough for us growing. Make a better world, make a better world. Heal the wild, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. If you care enough for the living, make a better place for you and for me. And the dream we were both living, we're full of joyful faith. could really get there if you care enough for the living. Make a little space to make a better place. Heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. If you care enough for the living, make a better place for you and for me. Heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. If you care enough for the living, make a better place for you and for me. Heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. If you care enough for the living, make a better place for you and for me. You and for me. You and for me. You're our children. For me. You and for me. You're our children. For me. For me. You're our children. For me. For me. You're our children. For me.
That was nice. That was Heal the World by kids or young persons from 160 different countries coming together every year. And this one, this piece was obviously before the pandemic, so they were singing Heal the World before the world was hit with COVID. It was needing healing before. It's needing it even more. And despite all the hardships all over the world that Hizmet movement is facing, these events are continuing all over the place. So, and thank you, Zeynep, for that quick introduction. Really appreciate that. So next we'll have the keynote of tonight. And let me just quickly introduce Dr. Ori Soltes, the keynote speaker. Dr. Soltes teaches at Georgetown University across a range of disciplines, from theology and art history to philosophy and political history. Soltes has authored scores of books, articles, exhibition catalogs, and essays on diverse topics, including sacred signs, how Jewish, Christian, and Muslim art draw from the same source, mysticism in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, searching for oneness, and searching for the oneness and embracing the world, the relationship between Fethullah Gulen, Jalaluddin Rumi, and others. Without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Soltes.
Thank you, Gunnar. It's a pleasure to be here. I would prefer to be with you in Austin, but I'll settle for communicating online. I guess I'm getting used to it. And inshallah, by the fall, we will be moving in an in-person direction. Since yes, it is all about person.
Insert.
Say what?
I mean, we were just talking about this. It's so hard to talk to an empty screen full of names. If the participants are okay with it, I would love to see the faces of the people who are here, and it would make it so much easier for Dr. Soltes to talk to us.
I absolutely agree.
If it's
nice
okay
to know
for
you're talking to people and not to a wall.
Please turn on your cameras if it's okay for you. Thank you.
So some of you have, at least. More of you shall, no doubt. We are a rather unusual species, you know. And one of the ways in which we engage the world is in terms of opposites. You know, we think black, white, we think wet, cold, wet, hot, wet, dry, hot, cold. We think of us and other, that's where we come into a rather interesting and problematic aspect of the way in which we think in opposites, ourselves and others. We think in terms of othering as opposed to embracing. And both as Americans and as humans, we have tendencies to do both. We can otherize and we can embrace. When we're at our best as humans and as Americans, we embrace. When we are less, we tend to otherize. This evening is, as you have heard, of course, about the ideas of restoration, of reconciliation, of resiliency, in a context in which, in particular ways, we have been particularly oppressed over the last couple of years, both humanity and the United States, as humanity has tried over the course of millennia and over the course of the last couple of years, and more recently than that, to move forward. So, of course, America has, and one of the obvious ways in which American resiliency has shown itself is with the extraordinary speed with which vaccinations against COVID were produced at a pace infinitely quicker than is usually the case for the production of such vaccinations. So among other things, it's a rather extraordinary symptom and symbol of our resiliency as Americans, and as that productivity has spread across the planet as humans. And of course, we're only starting to move forward. We still have much further to go. If we didn't, we'd all be in Austin and we wouldn't be talking by way of a screen. Yesterday, as Gunnar pointed out, was June 19th. This whole weekend has been rather interesting. Juneteenth, a specifically American feature of history in which the issues of restoration, reconciliation, resilience are important because it marks the anniversary of the ending of slavery in North America over a century and a half ago. The declaration of June 19th as a federal holiday was made 2 days earlier by President Biden on June 17th. And the whole conversation that revolves around that should and does remind us of a second form of oppression from which we have needed to become resilient and reconciled. If one has been COVID, another has been the issue of othering with respect to race, with respect to religion. So June 19th is not just marking the anniversary of the end of an institution, it's a reminder that aspects of what underlay that institution are still in operation in too many parts of our country and too many parts of the world. And that it's not just about othering by way of race, it's othering by way of religion. It's othering in all kinds of ways, by way of nation. But I like race, religion, because with restoration, reconciliation, and resiliency, I'm building up a supply of R's. Why not? And we are still trying to move forward. I would add another R, both to this conversation in general and to the sense of complication with respect to othering versus weing, embracing versus othering, and that is refugees. So another R, we can call it the fourth R after restoration, reconciliation, and resiliency. Or if you prefer, I'll leave the mathematics up to you. You can call it the sixth R, including restoration, reconciliation, resiliency, race, religion, and refugees. And of course, today is International Refugee Day. So yesterday was June 19th, today, June 20th, is International Refugee Day, in which we take note of the extraordinary array of refugee populations, both past and present. And that's the thing, it's not just past, it's present. It's not just present, it's past. On June 17th, I said a moment ago, President Biden declared June 19th, Juneteenth, as a federal holiday. June 17th also marked the anniversary of the time in 1939 when the ship known as the Saint Louis, the St. Louis, having sailed from Europe with 960 refugees upon it, most of them Jews, with entry permits with visas to enter Cuba by way of Havana, were when they got there turned away on the grounds that for some reason the visas, for which they paid well, no longer applied. And so the German captain, desperate to help the 960 refugees on his ship, of course, as many of you probably are aware, sailed up the coast of the United States, stopping at every coastal city, at every harbor, up to Canada, the same, turned away, turned away, turned away. We turned our back on those refugees then. It's a pattern that sometimes we have diverged from and embraced refugees, and all too often, including in the last couple of years, we have turned to rejecting and turning our backs on refugees. In fact, one of the things that most annoys me personally, you are aware of language, and you may be aware of the fact that in the last several years, the word refugee has disappeared from our vocabulary. Politicians, the press, the pundits use instead the word migrant. And as you are no doubt aware, the word migrant in English has a different connotation from that of refugee. Refugee tends to imply someone whom we might and ought and should feel obligated to help, to bring in, to embrace. It's easier, perhaps, to turn your back on someone who is labeled a migrant because your assumption is, oh, a migrant, someone coming here to get work and then is going to turn around and go home. He doesn't have to get his work here. She doesn't have to get her work here. Refugee, different category. So we have relabeled refugees again and again as migrants. So we have conquered, or we're in the process of conquering, a disease that is unprecedented in its scope in the course of this last century. We have been resilient as Americans and as humans in finding the means to combat diseases from polio to COVID. Can we conquer our prejudices the same way we have conquered diseases? Can we conquer our smaller, more selfish inclinations in favor of our more generous, our more mutually focused inclinations? Can we conquer our inclination to other in favor of an inclination to embrace? Well, one of the directions across human history, which has offered a kind of guidance to how one might feel and think about embracing rather than othering, is paradoxically religion, that very element which becomes across history and geography all too often, including recently, including in the United States, a means of othering. Religion in particular, in its intensified subset known as mysticism, can be not about othering, but embracing, not about particularizing and about thinking selfishly, but about universalizing and thinking more broadly and generously. The mystic is someone who desires to be filled with God. By definition, that's what a mystic seeks. In order to be filled with God, the mystic has to empty him or herself of self to make room for God. And if I empty myself of self and fill myself with God, I'm likely to realize that whatever particularized sense of religious favoritism I might have possessed was not God speaking, but my own ego speaking, my own selfish self speaking. So the mystic's goal is to be filled with God, but not just to be filled with God, not just to gain enlightenment, because think about this, that would be too selfish. If I want enlightenment, that's all about me. It's not about wanting to be enlightened. It's not about wanting to be filled with God. It's about wanting to be filled with God and enlightened so that under that changed condition that I will have experienced, I can benefit the community around me. I can benefit the world around me, ideally. I can help others. So we find this inclination again and again in Jewish and Christian and Muslim mysticism You have it in characters like St. Francis of Assisi and his famous dialogue with the Sultan of Egypt. You have it in Abraham Abulafia in Spain, who is teaching Kabbalah to Jews, Christians, and Muslims, males and females alike. You find it in Muslim mysticism with Ibn Arabi, and above all, here's another R, with Rumi, Jalaluddin Rumi, the 13th century mystic, the 13th century Sufi, who, among other things, and by the way, Rumi is the most read poet in print in the United States today, more so than Shakespeare, more so than Steinway, more so than the Bible. I just want to read you two passages from Rumi's Meisterwerk. One of them reads in part, I go into the Muslim mosque and the Jewish synagogue and the Christian church, and I see one altar. Another one reads, not Christian or Jew or Muslim, not Hindu, Buddhist, Sufi, or Zen, not any religion or cultural system. I am not from the East or the West, not out of the ocean or up from the ground, not natural or ethereal, not composed of elements at all. I do not exist, am not an entity in this world or the next, did not descend from Adam and Eve or any origin story. My place is placeless, a trace of the traceless. I belong to the beloved. One understands that the voice with which the poet speaks, the voice with which the mystic speaks, the voice with which Rumi speaks is the voice of God. Rumi is not presuming or pretending to be God. Rumi is so filled with God that the voice that comes out of him is not his own particularized, intensely Muslim voice. It's an intensely universalist voice that recognizes the infinite array of paths that lead in the same direction toward God. And so it is that Rumi was a particular focus and interest, and he's writing, you understand, in the midst of the Crusades, in the midst of a time when Christians and Muslims are slaughtering each other with great joy and pleasure. It is a time when the Mongols have come into the part of the Middle East where Rumi was originally from and wrought destruction. And his writing is about love. It's not about abandoning his sense of himself as a Muslim. It's seeing himself as a Muslim, small m. And for those of you who don't know Arabic, Muslim means someone who submits to God's will, small m. So anyone who submits to God's will is a Muslim, small m. Capital M, you're speaking about a specific form of faith that begins with Muhammad. Small m, anybody falls into that category, and Rumi is both. And as such, he embraces everyone. He is someone who in particular inspired the individual whom Zeynep referenced in her talk briefly, and that is Fethullah Gulen, a Turkish imam who came at the end of the 20th century, 1999, to the United States, where he still dwells in eastern Pennsylvania, who has been inspired by everyone from Socrates to Einstein, and puts all of this together in his own unique way. But above all, he's inspired by Rumi, by Rumi's thinking. He's inspired by Rumi's words. He's inspired by the idea of embracing the world, even as one embraces one's own particular form of faith, one's own particular form of whatever aspect of identity identifies one. Because Gulen reasons, if I claim as a person of faith to love God, how can I do other than to love all of creation because God created it all? I can't limit my love to just people who look like me, whose skin color is mine, whose nose shape is mine, whose religion is mine, whose nationality is mine. I can't do that and claim to love God because then I'm lying. I don't. And of course, if I'm not a person of faith, then I have no excuse for thinking across anti-religious lines anyway. So Gulen was inspired and brought from Turkey to America his thinking, and inspired not only by words, not only by thoughts, but towards actions, towards serving others. And this is the term hizmet in Turkish, again, that Zeynep referenced, hizmet meaning service in Turkish. So an entire movement spread through 160 countries, the point and purpose of which is to serve humanity, to wrestle with the problems, as Zainab said, of ignorance, of poverty, of prejudice, to use our resilient nature as human beings to reconcile with each other where there hasn't been, to restore ourselves and each other where we need restoration. It is about action. It's about serving others altruistically with concern for God and for those we serve, and not for my own self and my own need and my own ego. It is about establishing schools. It is about establishing social programs. It is about providing water for some community somewhere, be it Africa or anywhere else, which is desperate for water. It is about creating the kind of programs that Gunnar reviewed, that just one part of this organization over the last year has produced, and under difficult circumstances, demonstrating its resilience. The Hizmet movement is a movement of Turkish origin, but it's so emphatically American. Americans are known for action, and Hizmet is all about action. There is an irony, because history loves ironies. The irony is that Turkey itself, as some of you may not be aware, and you need to be aware if you're not, Turkey itself in the last 15 years has emerged out of a steady pattern since the 1920s of trying to establish itself as a republic and as a democracy. It has emerged out of democracy and climbed and crawled and clamored toward dictatorship and an authoritarian regime which resembles nothing like democracy. It's not just anti-democratic. The particular focus of the current Turkish leaders' animosity is the Hizmet movement, is Fethullah Gülen, who has inspired this sense of broad universal generosity of spirit. It's a little bit like, you see, history likes to repeat itself. It's like Germany in the 1930s and Hitler's animosity that was so singular towards the Jews. It's not that there weren't others he also disliked, but particularly and systematically the Jews, so Erdogan and Gülen and Hizmet. In fact, you may be aware of these little historical data. Toward the beginning of Hitler's regime, his people set fire to the Reichstag, this very important political building in Berlin, so he could accuse his political enemies of having done so and give him the excuse for rounding them up. And what do you suppose happened in July of 2016? 5 years ago, almost. There was what has been reported repeatedly as a failed coup. It was not. It was a fake coup. It was a coup that was attempted not as a coup, but organized by the current regime's leadership in order to provide the excuse to blame it on the Hizmet movement and claim that they had been trying to destabilize a government about which they had absolutely no interest in destabilizing. And the reason I'm bothering you with these details is I talked about the anniversary 3 days ago of that ship coming from Germany, and we turned away those refugees back in 1939, back on January 17th. And if we turn our back on what is happening elsewhere in the world today, we find ourselves in danger of failing to be resilient, failing to be reconciled, failing to restore. And we need to restore, to reconcile, to be resilient. The story of Turkey and its relationship to Hizmet is a cautionary tale. We had a crisis not so long ago in this country, culminating on January 6th with an assault, not on the Reichstag and not on a bridge in the middle of Istanbul, but on the Capitol building of the United States at the moment when a transition of government was about to take place from one president to the next, from one party to the next. We barely and have not yet necessarily fully escaped the danger to our democracy. We can and we must maintain and expand our own democracy, our own resiliency, to seek reconciliation between political perspectives. to embrace not other, diverse religions, races, refugees, all of which are part and parcel of what have made America at its best be its best. And that's what we have to do to be our best, to come full circle to where I began. If we want to move forward, if we want to move forward on all of these fronts, and not just dealing with COVID, because that's the tip of the iceberg of ways in which we need to move forward, then we need to be resilient and we need to reconcile one to another. We need to restore ourselves. We need to think of Rumi's words as it applies in his mind to diverse religious traditions, and understand that it applies to diverse ethnic traditions, racial traditions, national traditions, if we Americans are truly to be fully human and fully American at its best. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that inspiring, remarks. So this is going to lead into our next section. We will have what we call a table dialogue, and I hope nobody's going to complain that we will not have a table for the dialogue, since nobody complained that we don't have a dinner for the annual dinner. So I guess that's.
I'm waiting for my doorbell to ring for the food to show
well,
up. You know.
You'll wait a while then. So what we're going to do is the meeting hosts will split us up into breakout rooms. And then we will be shared some questions that Dr. Soltis helped us put together, just as a conversation starter. But the idea is to basically have dialogue. And I don't want to limit anybody to those questions. I mean, if you have more interesting things to talk about, go ahead. But hopefully we can get together, and we will have about 10-15 minutes of this dialogue. And at the end of that 15 minutes, you will be summoned back into this meeting. You don't need to do anything. All will be handled by the meeting hosts. So with that, see you in 15 minutes. Hopefully you had some nice discussions. At least you could unmute your microphones and make yourself heard. So, and we just want to have a portion where we actually are in dialogue. After all, this is a dialogue dinner. So we took out the dinner. At least let's keep the dialogue in there. So let's go to the next event. We have a performance here, and this isn't unusual. I'm not sure how many of you have seen this before. And I don't know how many of you will have an idea in their mind when I say sand art. So if you're familiar with the art, we will have a artist from Lubbock. He's a teacher there with a master's degree in instructional design and technology. He also at the school organizes clubs for calligraphy, sand art, and water marbling, which is another Turkish art form. But this is Jakub Barish, the artist, and he's gonna perform a special performance just for tonight. So let's watch him. That was amazing, wasn't it? He makes it look so easy. I want to try it now.
Yes, indeed.
So with that, we are coming towards the end of our event, but the most important part is still here. This is our award ceremony. If you're regular to these dinners, every year we select one or more individual organizations and show our appreciations to them. And this year, there were so many individuals and organizations that rose up to the challenge of this past year. Actually, I mean, I think we should actually give everyone here and everyone in the world really an award for sticking it through, doing the right thing, really limiting our freedoms so that for the benefit of society. So I'd like to thank everyone and congratulate everyone for a tough year and going through that. But we had to choose one organization, and we ended up deciding that the Central Texas Food Bank was kind of a prominent organization throughout this ordeal, let's say. So the food bank is a cornerstone of hunger relief for 21 counties here in Central Texas, working with an incredible network of over 250 partner organizations. They are on pace to distribute 70 million pounds of food this year to struggling neighbors. Hunger is a pervasive problem in Central Texas with 1 in 5 children being at risk of hunger. We were just talking about that in a breakout session. It's amazing. We live in America, but this is a real problem. Thankfully, the community has invested deeply in the food bank's mission, allowing them to serve hundreds of thousands of individuals each month. And on behalf of the organization, I'd like to invite the president and CEO of the Central Texas Food Bank, Derek Chubbs, to say a few words. And before I hand over the microphone, I also want to make sure that everybody knows this. All the proceedings of tonight, we're gonna be giving to the Central Texas Food Bank. And so if you still want to contribute, let us know, and you will be helping the food bank. So, Derek.
Thank you, Gunnar. You know, it's such an honor to be recognized by the Dialogue Institute. I mean, particularly given that your focus is global service, and from one to be recognized by another organization that's so prominent from a service perspective is truly moving. But I have to say that, it's been a challenging year for us all, certainly for us at the food bank. And, naturally seeing hunger at unprecedented levels, or the need at unprecedented levels. But if you take if there's a silver lining, we've always known that hunger was a problem in America. We've always known that hunger is a problem here in Central Texas. And what the pandemic did was shine this big, bright light on that problem. And what we're hoping that we can do is continue to advocate and stay focused so that at some point in time, we will start to actually minimize that hunger gap. Just for perspective, we mentioned that we're on track to distribute 70 million pounds of food this year. Just for perspective's sake, in 2016, we distributed 38 million pounds of food. So that's the growth curve that we've been on. And, and some would say, wow, that's wonderful. But we say that's terrible because it should be going in the opposite direction. But we will keep plugging away. And we want to, again, thank you for this recognition. And we're able to provide these services because this community is able to support us in providing those services. You know, in the breakout sessions, we talked to some of you who have come and volunteered for us. We don't do that without the support of this community from a philanthropic perspective as well as from a volunteer perspective. So truly on behalf of our staff, the volunteers, our board of directors, and most importantly, those that depend on our services day in and day out, you know, please accept my heartfelt thank you and best of luck for everything that you intend to do. And just know that if you want to volunteer, the food bank is always here and ready for you.
Thank you so much. And we appreciate your work, and we encourage everyone to volunteer and contribute to the food bank. It's working for all of us to help our neighbors. Thank you. So as a closing, we will have a prayer, an interfaith prayer. We basically put together a video of prayers by a number of local clergy. So we're going to close with that. Afterwards, if you just stay for a minute, what we like to do is, you know, when we have these dinners after the event, we come together and take pictures. So we're going to do a group picture on Zoom. All you need to do is stay on Zoom and turn your camera on for like 2 minutes, and we're going to do a screen capture basically. That's after watching the video, so you can get ready during the video if you need to. So let's listen to the prayers.
Merciful God, we come before you in pain, personal pain and social pain. The inequities of the pandemic and the violence inflicted on individuals whom you have created and love in our country and throughout the world reveal once again that our humanity is fractured and desperately needs your healing and restoration. From the beginning of time and throughout our scriptures, your saving grace and mercy have called us to restoration, reconciliation, resiliency, to do away with the inequities that divide us. Yet we have often ignored or rejected your vision. We know that there will be no peace without justice, no restoration without reconciliation, and that both require a resiliency in our efforts to partner with you in your work. We pray that the fire of your Spirit ignite and strengthen us to be your hands of restoration, your prophetic voice of reconciliation, and your resolute and resilient feet toward peace and healing. Amen.
Yishaberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov v'Imotenu Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless us as well. And may we learn all the lessons the Divine One has taught our ancestors and us in the present. May we learn to embrace all of the holiness in each other and to try to live up to the holiness in us. May we learn to treat each other with respect and love and compassion every day. And may we all work towards love and compassion and peace and health and safety for all of us, for everyone across the globe.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace be with you. This is Imam Baytullah from Respect Islamic Graduate School, Pennsylvania. In this difficult time of the hardship, injustice, and a lot of problems, we ask from God a light to illuminate our path. So let us pray. Oh God, Give us light in our hearts, and light in our tongues, and light in our hearings, and light in our sights, and light in our feelings, and light in our bodies, and light before us, and light behind us. Give us, we pray thee, light on our right hands, and light on our left hands, and light above us, and light beneath us. O Lord, increase light within us, and give us light and illuminate us.
O Lord, you brought the Dialogue Institute into being and gave her as a gift to this world. I pray that your Spirit would be upon the Dialogue Institute and the work they're doing here in Austin. Bless all whose lives are linked with the Dialogue Institute. Thank you for giving the Dialogue Institute to be such an important voice in our community, for dialogue, for love, for peace, for community. So bless Dialogue Institute that they may continue to be a blessing for us all. Amen.
May we pray. Merciful God, knowing the trials and tragedies of these many months, we struggle to remember our true relationship with you. Like Job, we sometimes forget who set the pillars of the earth, who shut the doors to the sea. And so in our own suffering and disillusion, we feel forsaken at times when the deeper need is for humility and gratitude. Strengthen us in our days ahead. Give us renewed hearts of love and forbearance, and the ability to see farther than our fears. Bless us in renewed purpose, and for all we are and have, we give you thanks. Amen.
Amen to that. Thank you. And that's the formal part of the event. So let's get together and show our faces for the group picture, if you don't mind. So just smile to the camera that's in front of you. Thank you, everyone. This was, hopefully it was as nice an evening as it was for me. I learned a lot and was able to see all these beautiful faces. So it always helps. Hopefully next time we can get together in person and celebrate our diversity that way. I especially like to all the speakers, Dr. Soltes, especially you. Thank you for taking the time being with us. We learned so much from you. Zeynep, thank you very much. Who else? And Derek, thank you for taking the time and being here.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch. And that's pretty much it. Thank you and have a good night. Bye.